the symptoms of the neurotic religious crazy person is that they tend to label everything as demonic, anything that goes against their current understanding of reality or against their religion. But from what I have seen, most, or at least a lot of people, have no idea what the demonic actually is. And because of the unknown, it's easy to project the demonic onto everything. But the demonic has specific, clear patterns of recognition. I've heard some people say that meditation is demonic, or yoga is demonic, or a lot of these other gods of other religion. I don't know. There's a lot of things that people think are demonic that are not actually demonic. We must first become clear about what the demonic actually is. It is simply the force of negativity in our existence. It's the force of destruction. In the universe, this manifests as entropy and black holes. But because human beings have this elevated psychological dimension, it manifests in things like evil. I mean, you know evil when you see it. I guess it does make sense why people use evil or demonic as a blanket term for the things that they don't know about. Because evil comes from darkness, from not knowing, from unconsciousness. And if you think about it, even from the caveman days, during the night, that is when we all got eaten by different animals in the bushes. And so there's a naturally arising fear that is associated with the dark, the night, the unknown, chaos. So it is simply a natural human response that people would develop this kind of, oh, everything's demonic. So don't blame yourself if that is you. It's not that big of a deal. But you must come to the light. Do not live in ignorance. That is demonic. What is demonic is anything that brings you down into lower states of being. It is things that make you sick, that bring you closer to death. Because if you think about the idea of demons, right? These forces, these entities, they have no life of their own. They're like vampires. So they have to steal that life force from you, from other people. But they are not allowed to just do that. If a demon could just come into your life and swallow you whole, well then there would be no people left. The game is much more seductive than that. And so what they have to do, like a vampire, you have to allow them into your life in order for them to have an effect over you. But because, like they say, hell is not, it's not something that people would just walk in and say, yes, this is where I want to be. It is said that the devil has to make the path to hell attractive. And so what demons do, it's like they're fishing all the time. They're throwing out bait, like little worms. And like a good little fish, you latch onto the worms and you eat the worms. And that is called sin. And it is through sin or wrong action in which we allow the demonic influence over our lives. And we get hooked and we get addicted. And when we are addicted, it is like a constant fuel source feeding the demonic energy. Because our life force is constantly being drained. And where life is not, death is. So the less life force that we have within us, the more we will feel like death. And when we are separated from this life force, we feel depressed. We feel these deeply negative emotions of hatred and pain and suffering, of dread and regret and shame. And that is what leads to hell. And there comes a point where all or most of the life is drained out of us, and then death manifests in the physical world as suicide or some violent act out into the world, or walking in front of a bus on accident. Even unconsciously, we may accidentally kill ourselves if our energy is allowed to be drained for long enough. And when you see these horrendous acts out in the world, you know that is hell. You know that is demonic. And so in that way, we create hell on earth by allowing our energy to be drained by the force of negativity. And so you see, each action, which includes thoughts, has with it a tendency or a characteristic of either negativity, neutrality, or positivity. This tendency is related to how it interacts, its relationship with energy, with our life force. So a positive action is something that gives us more energy than we put out. It gives us more in return. A neutral action is something that doesn't give us any more energy, but it doesn't take anything away. And an action that is negative, or what people call sin or wrong action, takes energy and it doesn't give us anything in return. For positive action, the amount of energy that we can receive is unbound, it's unlimited. So I can input 1 unit of energy and I could get back 10 or 100. So too with wrong action or sin, you can put in 1 unit of energy and lose 10, lose 100, lose 1,000. The more evil, the more messed up the thing it is that you do, the more energy you will lose. And you have to imagine like the second order consequences of these things. So when you engage in wrong action, it's not just you're going to have a consequence of that action. It's that you're reinforcing an identity. You're becoming a certain kind of person. So that action is going to lead into a series of many different actions into the foreseeable future, because you have now become somebody who engages in that type of action. And so the consequences compound and they compound, and that energy leakage, that becomes. So we have this kind of idea that, oh, there's demons and they're manipulating us and they're doing these things. And from what I've seen is that, yes, there are these negative forces on these lower planes that we cannot see. But by having strong beliefs about them, we allow them in because now we are vulnerable to being afraid. If there was a great demon that was haunting you, that you couldn't see, that was in this kind of other realm, but it came and attacked you every night, there is probably nothing that you could do to not be afraid, because you believe in it, because you have identified with the story of what is happening to you. But you see, one thing that I have become very good at is neutralizing my experiences. To neutralize that experience, you can have the exact same thing happen to you, but the moment you take away your belief, you take away the story, and you just watch and observe without attachment, which is not always easy, which is why this is something that has to be practiced. Eventually, the story loses power over you because you are not letting it in. And so we must remember that what is demonic uses our own life force to have influence over us. When you cut off that source of fuel, when you stop feeding them, they dissipate because they are illusions. They're not real, but we believe them into existence and give them form. We make them real. We give them life. And so too, there is a small portion of the world that is constantly fueling these great demonic influences. And then these demonic influences have the power to go out and wreak havoc on the world. And as they expend that energy, for instance, a demon might try to attack somebody by getting them into a car accident, creating suffering, creating pain, and then it feeds off that negativity, that suffering. If the demon is strong enough, it will kill those people. If it is not strong enough, it will not be successful. Or if there is a counterbalance, an angelic force, or if God is protecting somebody, then that demon will only have so much influence. This is why a lot of the great evil things happen in this world. This is spiritual warfare. It's like the demons are planning and they're conniving and they're figuring out different ways to get energy, to feed off the fear of the masses, to feed off the suffering of people. And there comes a time where they have gathered enough energy, they've gathered enough power, and so they inflict their chaos into these different situations through individuals. People like to say that, well, how could God allow all this evil and suffering to exist? But the fact is that evil exists because of the absence of God in man's heart. The demons, the darkness is then able to take over and then have influence over the world through that individual. So too, God and angelic forces will typically not enter your life unless you allow them in as well. So you have to call out for that protection. You have to call out to receive the love of God. God, however, will not manipulate you into loving God. God is just like a loving parent standing in the background waiting for you to notice. But because we become so blinded by the world, we don't see very clearly. And because we don't see, the demons are able to work through that darkness and lead us astray. What might surprise you is that a lot of people think things are demonic when they're not. And so too, a lot of people believe that things are not demonic when they are. Think about fast food, for instance, like McDonald's. We think, oh, it's okay. Look, it's not a big deal. It's just some fast food that we're feeding our children and making them sick and poisoning them. Look, this is just some candy. Candy is good. Candy is normal. You don't have to be such a prude about everything. It's just candy. Soda. It's just some soda. What's the big deal? That unconsciousness, that ignorance, and often the willful ignorance, that is the darkness in which the demonic can wrap its claws around us. Because all that poison that you allow into your body and into the body of the people you love, that is making them more sick and bringing them closer to death. Think of the second order consequences. You feed a child soda and candy and fast food. Then they don't feel good because you fed them poison. Then they act out. Then they are difficult to be around. Then you don't like them as much in that moment. So you project onto them irritation and negativity, or maybe you get a bit angry, maybe you lash out, maybe you punish them. Then now you have begun nurturing a negative relationship with them, where they really don't understand what they're doing wrong. All they know is that right now, my parent doesn't love me very much. Now, I might be being dramatic, but maybe not. Now imagine this over 1,000 different things, 1,000 different wrong actions that continue to compound over a lifetime, that create an infinite array of unforeseen consequences. That is the degree in which the force of negativity is working on all of our lives. We are like human juice boxes hooked up to the IV of the one great, the demonic monstrosity. But you see, I am probably responsible for creating some neurotic chihuahuas, because now that you begin thinking about this kind of thing, it is very easy to start thinking, oh, am I feeding the demonic? Am I feeding the demonic? Is this action that I'm doing going to feed the demonic? But it is precisely that fear and that worry and that anxiety that is feeding the demonic. Sometimes it's best just to live your life, be in the present moment, and neutralize the experience. Just watch it. Just observe it. It doesn't have to be good or bad. That is a label that we project onto things. Sometimes it's best just to be as you are. Allow the messiness of being human, because humans are messy. Don't blame yourself or beat yourself up for accidentally feeding the demonic. Because unless you are seriously doing some evil things, it's probably not that big of a deal. You just want to become more aware, be more conscious of your actions out of love, not out of fear. Love for the people you love. Because if you're operating from fear, you cannot help but create suffering. Because all of your actions, all of your thoughts, all of your emotions is coming from you. Life is flowing through you. And so the quality of life is determined by the quality of what is within. To transcend the demonic, to transcend the darkness, all you have to do is turn on the lights. This life that is flowing through us, this energy must become more and more unobstructed. It should be allowed to flow more freely. But we have so many things in our mind, so many objects, so many thoughts, so many beliefs, so many perspectives and identities, that these things block out the light. An example that I like to use is that if you imagine our being, ourselves, as a house, but everybody is like a great hoarder. There's so many boxes of ideas, there's so many things, there's so many messes of beliefs and perspectives and strong opinions and strong identities everywhere, with each box that is stacked on top of each other. That area is blocked out from the light. The light cannot shine through it. And the more boxes that you have covering up everything, the less light can shine through, and the more darkness takes its place. The reason that people do not see God in life is because all of these boxes are in the way. The moment you begin quieting the mind, letting go and surrendering to the present moment, God becomes more and more apparent to you. The more the light is able to shine through, the more joy, love, peace you will experience on a daily basis. The more inspired you will be to live. This is how you create heaven on earth. Not by doing anything, but by allowing the light to shine through you. This energy, this force of harmony, this divine intelligence that is already progressing the whole of existence forward. This is what it means to be virtuous, to be good, because you are allowing more good into the world. That is how you overcome the demonic, how you transcend the darkness. The power within you is so great that you have no idea the things you are capable of, the miracles that you can create. If only you allow the beauty of who you are to shine through without limiting it. To just be as you are now. Because you are already in heaven. You're only dreaming that you're not.